So for all of our fellow alumni that will eventually see this, my name is Marquise Cooper, class of 2014. I'm here today with Elizabeth Madzin, also class of 2014. And Elizabeth and I both serve on the steering committee for Emerging Leaders Network as a part of JWU Connects. And what we're doing is conducting kind of a series of JWU conversations to really get at some of the things that inspire our fellow alumni, some of the things that they're reading and doing on a daily basis to help them in their personal and professional life. And the hope is that from these conversations, those of you that'll see this will get you'll hear a little nugget of information or inspiration that might help you in your personal and professional life. So with that, Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So let's just, start with a little bit of background. So I said our class year, but why don't you tell our fellow alumni a little about yourself and your professional experience?
Yeah, so I'm originally a Jersey girl, born and bred, very proud. Came to Rhode Island for Johnson and Wales and fell in love. I fell in love with Johnson Wales the moment I stepped on campus when I was touring it as a senior, and came to Johnson and Wales truly and solely wanting to be a wedding planner. I thought that's what my end-all goal was, and I'll be honest with you, I saw Jennifer Lopez in the wedding planner, and that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to have the headset, the whole 9 yards. And I remember so I became a sports entertainment event management major. And my first class with Professor Morris was intro, and he made us write down 3 things, what possible, goals for us as far as jobs go when we graduate. And I only had one option on there, and one thing I wrote down was wedding planning. And he told me, he said, Elizabeth, you need to broaden your horizons a little bit because you just don't know what the future is going to hold for you. And he could not be more correct on that fact. So I really enjoyed my time in the classroom. Through that, I had an opportunity to intern for a local Rhode Island wedding planner. Her name is Jamie. I'm still great friends with her. She owns a really small, wonderfully run boutique firm called Eventfully Planned, a wedding planning firm. And I worked under her on and off for about 2 years, and it was great exposure. But back to Professor Morris's point, he was right. I wasn't as fulfilled as I thought I would be. And what led me into the nonprofit world eventually. So growing up, my family was very involved with Susan G. Komen through Breast Cancer Connections. And my neighbor growing up was the executive director of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And she was gracious enough to connect me with the local Rhode Island chapter, where I started an internship my junior year. And that changed my life for the better. Again, and I loved wedding planning. But again, like I said, it's just for me, I wasn't as fulfilled. So I started an internship there. From there, went on to be a candidate for our Man and Woman of the Year campaigns. Was a high active volunteer. And then after graduation, I did take a brief position in Manhattan and realized, again, it wasn't a great fit for me. I was a catering manager at a law firm. And then a position opened up at the New Jersey chapter of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I was there for 3.5 years. It was a tremendous experience. I loved my colleagues. I love our mission. I, at the time, did not have a connection to blood cancer. Unfortunately, now I do. But seeing what LLS does and how the organization has evolved over the years was really tremendous. So I ran our Man and Woman of the Year campaign, and I also managed our Students of the Year campaign. And then for personal reasons, my life was leading me back to Rhode Island, and I was looking for a change. So through a connection at LLS, ironically, I landed a position at the University of Rhode Island in annual giving, which was a great opportunity into higher ed. Was very unfamiliar with higher ed at that point, and it was a very different scope than what I was doing at Man Woman. I'm sorry, at LLS and Man Woman and
Yep.
Students of the Year campaign. And so I was there for a year. But again, that fulfillment, it just wasn't as there like I'd hoped. And I really realized how much I missed the oncology space. Not sure what that was going to look like, but I was trying to get myself back, into the healthcare nonprofit sector. And I just got very lucky. And there was an opportunity in the New England chapter. So the Rhode Island chapter ended up merging with Massachusetts and is now the New England chapter, where I was offered a role very recently as a senior manager for our Light the Night campaign. So I've been there for a little over a month now. So it's very new. It's an interesting time to start a new position, honestly and truthfully. But I'm very grateful to be back here. Like I said, I love working in the oncology space. I love working with patients and their families. And I am, going back to Johnson and Wales, I am working on events. So my hospitality background really is very helpful in my current career. Being at Johnson Wales taught me how to build relationships and event management and time management. And I don't think I would be the professional that I am, and have been able to build the network that I have without that. So
Was there
that's a little bit about me.
was there a particular experience while on campus that you were able to use in your later, I guess, professional career? Anything?
Yeah, we in one of my classes, and the name of the class is slipping me. I will be frank with you. I think it was a concerts class with Professor Covino. We had to do put a nonprofit concert together. So you really goes and show you like how to secure in-kind donations, how to secure cash sponsorships, how to have those conversations. Because when you're a nonprofit, you're in sales. You have to sell to your constituents, to your donors, to companies,
Yep.
Which is a lot of what I do now. Why you should be giving to us. The reality of it is, especially nowadays, there's a lot of very worthy nonprofits. But at the same time, unfortunately, there's also the reputation that a lot of nonprofits don't put a lot of their dollar back to their mission. I'm very proud to work for LLS. We put about 74 cents every dollar back to our mission, which is one of the highest in the world. So learning those skills at Johnson & Wales and showing the value of a dollar to donors and to anyone, it definitely has come full circle for me.
So since you've been out of school, we've been out of school, what now, 5 or 6?
5.5 years, which I cannot believe.
Yep,
I
it's
really
wild,
can't believe
right?
that.
But you've had an interesting kind of career trajectory since then. And even though it seems like a short amount of time, you've been able to do a lot.
Right.
I think a lot of our alumni can say the same thing, that since they've been out, been within the last couple of years, alumni are all over the place and doing a lot of different things. So there's been a lot of variety. In your, path up until now, has there been a particular challenge or kind of uphill battle that you've had to face that really kind of put your skill set to the test? And can you tell us how you were able to overcome it and what skills you used or what resources you used?
So I will honestly, not that I wouldn't say it was a huge uphill battle, but when looking for a new job, I was in this position, similar time frame to this past year and the time before. Again, the first reason was I knew it was strictly personal. I was looking just to come back to New England.
Yep.
And then this past year, I was looking for a change as far as leaving my position at University of Rhode Island, which was a great experience. But again, it just wasn't as fulfilling for me as I would have hoped. Really tapping into the networking skills I learned at Johnson & Wales and learning how to diversify your network, keeping that Rolodex, as they say, just constantly full. And we are very lucky nowadays. We have a lot of resources like LinkedIn and like Zoom and stuff that we're able to connect with people, especially now more than ever. So I remember, again, Professor Morris and a lot of the other professors in the SCE department were really, taught us to rely on that, and not necessarily even rely on that, but to utilize that and to continue to build it. So I don't know if that's necessarily a challenge, but it was finding a job, that is a full-time job a lot of times. So definitely using those skills and honing in on what the professors really taught us, and also telling us how important real life experience is. And if you're not happy somewhere, make a change. It's okay. So I remember Professor Gilbert always said, don't worry about money, because the next day you're just going to make more, no matter how you do it. So I think it just depends how you look at things too.
That's good. I'm going to use that. So right now on my table, I got a copy of Bob Iger's book, The Ride of a Lifetime. So Bob Iger's the CEO of Disney, and he wrote this talking about his career trajectory at Disney and a lot of the leadership lessons that he's learned and tried to apply. What's on, if anything, what's on your nightstand or bookshelf right now that you're kind of reading or looking into?
Well, I'll stop my screen for a second and I will show you.
Okay.
So 2 things. I was in the car a lot prior to the world we live in now, but I'm a big Audible fan, and I'm also a big Disney fan, ironically, so I actually want to read that book now. I'm currently on my Audible listening to Homework, Julie Andrews' new autobiography, which is really wonderful, again, if you're into that kind of stuff. I also have another book. I'm like really into like romantic novels, like very cheesy romantic novels. So another book I have on digitally is All We Ever Wanted by Emily Griffith. But like a side note of my career, like a point of passion, and Marquise, you know this about me, is I love to cook. Not to the extent of what our Johnson Wales professional chefs can do. Funny enough, my parents, when I was at Johnson Wales, thought I could just like take a cooking class, like a random cooking class, and I'm like, that's not how it works. But a point of passion for me is really health. I found out a year and a half ago I have an autoimmune disease, so I've been trying to navigate what the best quote unquote diet is. I don't really believe in the word diet, but like the lifestyle of eating is. So I've been reading this book by Samantha Harris. Some of you might recognize her. She was a Dancing with the Stars co-host, and she's a cancer survivor. So just talking about food and how it affects our mental and our physical abilities. So that's something I'm really passionate about right now, again, being home. I will be starting an Instagram account dedicated just to food for autoimmune compliant people out there, something I've recently thought about. So that's like my side point of pride right now is food and wellness and all that.
Elizabeth, did you have a mentor or any mentors that you kind of tapped along the way, or that you still are tapped into now that helped guide you through your career progression?
Yeah, I would say a few, not to be corny. My mother was always like my biggest advocate and mentor, 100%. She always taught me, and we're in very different careers. My mom's in real estate development for a large Mexican chain. But she always said, no matter what you're doing, as long as you believe in the mission and you're passionate about it, that's what you have to go with. And that's sort of as what always helped guide my career. If I didn't feel that oomph and that passion and that love for what I was doing, I knew it wasn't the right fit. Stacy Weathers, who a lot of people don't know, but she was my neighbor growing up, who was the executive director of the New Jersey chapter of LS. We tragically lost her 4.5 years ago in a car accident, but she had the biggest passion for our mission at LS and for others and just helping others as a whole. So she was a huge mentor in that sense. And honestly, just all of my past executive directors, and I keep going back to LLS, but I just really am passionate about our mission. Stacy, my executive director, Jana, was really instrumental in me getting my current position. And Bill Kokonis, who I worked with at URI, who was my executive director when I was in the Rhode Island chapter as an intern. And they have really helped guide me and pushed me to do what I want to do. But there's so many mentors out there, and just in different capacities, professional and personal. So, but definitely those individuals.
And do you have any particular, whether it be a personal or professional mentor, do you have any particular, things that you look for to help identify what makes a good mentor for you?
Yeah, I think someone who's really transparent, who's not afraid to say the hard things, and someone who is fearless, and no matter what. And if you believe in something and you're passionate about it, you'll go at no ends to fight for that. And I think people who just have I know this might sound silly, but like just an outgoing personality who's engaging, who's welcoming, and who shares the same values as you do to a point.
Right. And our last, and we'll kind of leave it off here. So I'm a big proponent of, since we're talking about mentors, of getting advice and buy-in from everyone, in my circle. And I recommend, this, to everybody that will eventually see this. So when it comes to, again, going back to nuggets of information or inspiration, can you think of some of the best advice that you have ever been given or that you might have given yourself?
Yeah, I'll go back to Professor Morris, freshman year intro class. Always be open because you just don't know what the world's going to hold. And that is so true. I can attest to that. And again, Professor Gilbert, who I just adore, he is not your typical professor. He's so outgoing in the best way. He said, don't worry about making money. You can always make more tomorrow. So, my takeaway from that is and it's hard again. Nowadays, especially, it's hard to not worry about stuff like that. But the future will hold what the future will hold. And the more you worry about it, sometimes it can almost make a situation worse upon yourself. So honestly, just go with the flow. Again, it's sometimes much easier said than done. I'm not the most go with the flow person by any means, and take those outlets. I like to spin, like take those outlets and take time for you because you're never going to get that time back. So, and honestly, the biggest, someone told me, and again, this is so obvious, like really balance your time as far as work and social. Social is just as important as a career, if not more important. You know, I'm a firm believer. My grandmother lived to 91 years old, and I'm convinced that she lived as long as she did because she had the best social life, especially for a 91-year-old. So I think incorporating that into your life and just making your life as whole as possible is so important.
Right. Elizabeth, thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.